The mind-body connection is nothing more than the basic idea that your brain and body are inextricably linked and in constant communication. What's good for your body is good for your brain and vice versa. And when you do better, you feel better. So you have all experienced moments of your mind-body connection, palms, sweaty palms, right before a meeting, your heart racing before an important event or before you're getting on stage or, a presentation, butterflies of falling in love. All of these are examples of the mind-body connection. This particular reset is about the mind-body connection, first becoming aware of it, but then learning strategies to actually harness it and tap into it to manage your stress. And Stop, Breathe, Be is actually one of those strategies that is in this particular reset.
It sounds like, and from the next bit of conversation we have before we tie everything up, resilience can be learned, and rewiring the brain suggests, as it's in your book title and the 5 resets, suggests that anybody can take these exercises or similar ones and build true resilience. And so I'd like to take the next bit of time and go over the 5 resets in your words. I want to see what you have to say to us and how you can communicate that to your audience, if you could, starting with 1, get clear on what matters most. Can you go through that one with us?
Sure. So the first reset is get clear on what matters most. And it simply is a way to get out of amygdala mode back to the prefrontal cortex. And there are several strategies. So the 5 resets overall are 5 small but mighty mindset shifts that really can transform your relationship to stress. And in the 5 resets, the book, there are about 15 science-backed strategies, like I said, all cost-free, all actionable and practical that you can use today. Because that was also very important to me, that I don't, when you're feeling a sense of stress, I don't want you to feel more stressed by using some of these resets and building them into your life. So they have to feel easy, accessible. And of course, they have to be effective because, there's so much information out there that is frankly not scientifically based. And so staying close to the science was and is very important to me. And so that first reset is about how to get out of that amygdala mode back to the prefrontal cortex. It's so easy when you're feeling a sense of stress to get in your own way. It's not you, it's how your brain is designed. It's the amygdala. You're thinking about the immediate when you're feeling a sense of stress, because that's your amygdala, immediate survival and needs. And so this particular reset has 3 strategies in it that helps you without really even doing much. You just follow the plan, gets you out of that immediate needs mode, and helps you create a plan.
Yeah, I think that plan helps you set boundaries too when you start prioritizing your core values, to be able to, if you're spending time with family and that's important to you and you've prioritized that, then that's it. You're not bringing any work into that domain. You're just keeping it as is. So I think that's great. But on to the second one, finding quiet in a noisy world, create moments of silence and calm in your daily routine.
So this one we've talked about during our conversation. It's about creating digital boundaries. It's about protecting your sleep and the stress sleep cycle we talked about and the stress scroll cycle. And so this second reset actually helps you operationalize a lot of what we talked about earlier. How to overcome revenge bedtime procrastination, why you have that primal urge to scroll and what you can do about it. And then finally, getting clear, getting clear on those digital boundaries and how to actually implement those boundaries in your everyday life.
The next one, sync your brain and your body. Just to say one word about it before I let you go on, it is we're going to have Dr. Bessel van der Kolk on Body Keeps the Score of trauma. And so thinking about how the body is involved in stress and resilience is huge. And it's harder, I think, and for people to conceptualize and less looked at. But the body and the manifestations of stress that you talked about are as involved as the brain and the mind. And so maybe you could just tell us why you put body in there and tell us a little bit more about sync your brain and your body.
Yeah. So that particular reset is all about the mind-body connection. And it's what I have spent a lot of my training learning about and doing research on. The mind-body connection is nothing more than the basic idea that your brain and body are inextricably linked and in constant communication. What's good for your body is good for your brain and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And when you do better, you feel better. So you have all experienced moments of your mind-body connection, palms, sweaty palms, right before a meeting, your heart racing before an important event or before you're getting on stage or, a presentation, butterflies of falling in love. All of these are examples of the mind-body connection. Mm-hmm. This particular reset is about the mind-body connection, first becoming aware of it, but then learning strategies to actually harness it and tap into it to manage your stress. And Stop, Breathe, Be is actually one of those strategies that is in this particular reset.
Yeah, that's incredible. We did we're doing a little microbiome and gut health series. And
cool.
One thing that with some of the folks over at Zoe, the big microbiome company, but a point that was kind of underlying our entire conversation that we were having was the sense of intuitive eating, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm getting the same sense from our conversation today is, just being intuitive about your own body, what you're feeling and why you're feeling it as a first step to changing your circumstances. And if those feelings are negative, then altering those sensations and those feelings. What do you think about this sort of intuitive sense of understanding what's going on in your own body?
So I don't actually know much about intuitive eating as a field. It is a very broad field, and I don't know much about it, but I do write quite a bit about the gut-brain connection in the 5 resets, which is a known entity. And research in the gut-brain connection, it's an emerging field and growing every day. Mm-hmm. Simply, the gut-brain connection is another version of the mind-body connection, and the gut is your second brain. It has more serotonin receptors, and serotonin, we know, is very much a brain chemical, right? So, SSRIs, for example, the class of drugs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, things like Prozac. So serotonin, there are more serotonin receptors, 3 to 5 times more serotonin receptors in your gut than your brain. Mm-hmm. And in many ways, your gut is your second brain because the microbiome, it's a ecosystem of trillions of bacteria. And what the microbiome does, it doesn't just do digestion. It can regulate all sorts of things, glucose control, circadian rhythm. And as it turns out, even your mood, your stress, your resilience. In the microbiome, there's a subset called the psychobiome, which is healthy bacteria in your gut whose sole role is managing stress, burnout, mood regulation, resilience, etc. So incredible. This is a fascinating field.
Yeah. And you've talked about it before, and I want to make sure we hit it, is movement. So not necessarily, exercising for, for a certain look, but rather movement for stress reduction.
When I think about exercise and movement, I'm so happy you used that term movement. It's more about the promise of mental fitness and physical fitness, mm-hmm. because when you are engaging in a habit, when you do a little bit every day, you avoid decision fatigue rather than doing something once in a while. And I could talk endlessly about the benefits of movement. And again, it taps into that mind-body connection. What's good for your body is good for your brain and vice versa. And movement has been shown to be very important for certain parts of the brain, for managing stress and for other parts of the brain. It's really, really important.
But you've said before, because I've heard you on a previous podcast, it's not necessarily the movement, it's just not sitting, because the negative effects of sitting are so significant and robust. What do you think?
That's right. I have said that, and there's a lot of data, and I write about it in the 5 resets as well, that it's not just that sitting, it's not just that exercise is good for you, that movement is good for you, but in fact, sitting is bad for you. It has been shown when you have prolonged sitting. I don't mean sitting like how you and I are sitting and talking, but we are sedentary and sitting for hours a day, particularly now more than ever. And so it has it has pretty big implications on all sorts of things, particularly our mental health. And so data has shown that when you sit for prolonged periods of time, it actually can help. It can actually cause more anxiety. So there's a real link between mental health and physical health in this way.
Uh, so number 4 we have, which kind of gets at this a little bit: come up for air, take breaks.
So this next reset, come up for air, it's not actually about air and breathing. I talk about that in another reset. This particular one is about creating mental bandwidth. And so we talked about this earlier, multitasking and the myth of multitasking, and going forward instead, the antidote to that of monotasking.
And 5,
And 5.
Bring your
bring
best
your
self
best
forward.
self forward. Yeah, let's hear about
Bring
that.
your best self forward is, really leaning into this idea of silencing your inner critic. With your inner critic, that amygdala has a megaphone, and your inner critic is yet another protective mechanism gone haywire. And it's about strategies to help silence that inner critic so that you can live your best life and really, move forward to be the best version that you can be with less stress and more resilience.